So one of my pet hates is that when people turn up to the lesson, they're unprepared. Usually they got just a minute before their lesson and yeah, they don't even warm up. One of the other ones which I really dislike is people turning up with the wrong equipment. Sometimes even, oh, I forgot my clubs, can I use yours? There's another one which I am going to get into today, and that is shoes. Some people will turn up quite often with the right equipment, all warmed up, but they've got a pair of shoes on that they never wear for golf. They say to me, it doesn't make a difference. Well, I'm going to test today and see if a pro can hit with different golf shoes. And there's a difference in there. I'm pretty sure there's a difference for the amateur too. So what am I going to use to prove or test this? Well, I have the Swing Catalyst motion force plate. Also have a pressure plate on it. So that means that I can measure the amount of pressure moving from side to side. You're going to see this when I stand on the plate itself and look behind. You can see how sensitive it is. So if I move my pressure from one side to the other, that's going to show up. After the shot, we're also going to be able to measure the different types of forces that I applied during the shot. Let's get a closer look to see what else we can find out. So here you can see a classic example of a golf shot. I'll play it one time at 34% speed. You can see the pressure moving. So if we look at the top bar there, we can see the amount of pressure, the COP, center of pressure, moving out towards the right side. And you can see I get 82% there at the top of the backswing. Moving across to the left into impact, that one's 75%. Also what we're able to measure is of course the horizontal power. So from back to front, or right to left foot we would call it, the amount of force that you're putting into the ground there, followed by the torque, which is just below, and of course then the vertical forces at the bottom. Naturally, we also are very interested in finding out what kind of information we have via the club. So the club path there, being 3.6, the club speed. So this is all of the vital information I want to test today. So we're going to look through the selection of different shoes I test. These ones, these were mine. First ones we tested. What are they? Well, they're very firm based. They're pretty tight. They got good spikes on the bottom. Okay, that was my first choice. Other golf shoes. Well, you have these sport looking shoes right now. Very, very popular. They have a high back and a low front. Maybe that might make a difference. Let's find out. They're spikes on the bottom, supposedly. There's a lot more flex and give in it. Perhaps that's good for jumping. We will see. There's also the kind of casual golf shoes. So these ones, yes, they have some dimples on the bottom there. And as you can see, very, very flexible. Now, of course, some people turn up with these. They might not be the right match, but we'll see how good or bad they are. What I don't like is when people turn up something like this, some hiking boots. Yeah, they got grip on the bottom. They're pretty flexy as well. And of course, they're already quite high up. Have you ever tried playing golf with stilts? Probably not the easiest. There's that one we're going to try out. Running shoes. Slippery. Very, very flippy. Can move them all over the place. And of course the classic pair of brogues. Pair of nice shoes there. Oops, I forgot to bring them. Don't worry, these slippery little things, you'll be fine. Because we're doing such a wild test, I thought, why not test out some complete opposites as well? So, people like freedom in their movements. I'm going to test with a pair of socks, because I'm going to see exactly how I move without any help at all. And of course the flip side, my ski boots. Now there's no movement in this at all, so hopefully we're going to see something. Okay, so I've hit 5 shots with my driver, ping driver, in my golf shoes. These FootJoy Icons, which I've been using for many, many years, or this type of shoe. It's a very rigid one. And what we're going to find out is what type of results I got and were they consistent. So my club head speed was 113.3 miles an hour with a standard deviation of 0.78. Pretty consistent. Club path 2.7 to the right, 1.37 deviation. Now for the other aspects, I decided to measure the amount of pressure I put on the trail leg, the amount of pressure I put on the front leg, the lead leg, at the moment of impact. So backswing, impact. Also, I've taken horizontal force, torque, and vertical force. And these are all measured, and I've taken an average. So the pressure was very consistent. Pressure to the trail side was 82 on the trail side, and then leading into a 72 at the moment of impact on my left. The others, horizontal was 205, sorry, yep, 205, torque was 118, and vertical was 1,431. These all measure in newtons. There's our base. Now we've got to look at how we're going to change it up, what we're going to use, and understand whether there's any changes or not. All right, first test done with the socks. Now, we'd imagine a lot more freedom, and actually that wasn't the case. During the backswing, I did apply exactly the same amount of pressure on my trail leg, 82%. But then going into the ball, I only got it to 64, which was a lot lower than the 72 average I had before. Interestingly, the very first shot wasn't bad, and then after that I slowed down. So it was like I was scared of falling over. And that resulted, of course, in much lower club head speed, 107. The path did improve somewhat, going to a slightly straighter line, but all of the forces dropped down considerably. So perhaps freedom of movement is not the key. Let's try with something much stiffer. We're going to go with the ski boots next. So that was a test with the ski boots. Now you might say, well, that's kind of a crazy, stupid test. But if I was losing speed because I had more freedom, if we completely clamped down, surely I would gain speed. Well, that didn't work either. In fact, I had less speed. I went down to 100 miles an hour with ski boots on. My pressure was pretty much the same on the backswing again. But this one, because I was so stuck, I couldn't even get myself across to the left leg. I was still trapped on my right leg, my trail leg, and at impact I had 59 on the right leg. So we really have to see if there's a magical number between the two, or some pair of shoes that's going to allow me to move correctly. Obviously the forces all dropped down as well, but interestingly, because I was trapped on this right leg, my club path went way left. Now I was on 3.5. So let's find out what's the next pair. I'm going to test out these ones. Hiking boots. So after testing the hiking boots, I decided to also test out the sport shoes and the dress shoes. The results are pretty similar. The hiking boots were the slowest with 103, and then moving up 107, 108. Club paths are all pretty similar. Again, hiking boots were much more out to the right. The others were pretty similar, as well as everything else across the board. But they still have definitely dropped down from 113 down to, of course, 108 is the maximum miles an hour we can achieve. So now it's time to go back and test out a different pair of golf shoes and see if golf shoes are really the answer. So after trying the different shoes, I gotta say it surprised me actually. The golf shoes here, or the so-called casual shoes, I did not expect much to come from them. I thought they were too flexy, a little bit too floppy, but I was mightily impressed. We got up to 110 miles an hour. Now don't get me wrong, this is not the 113 that I do with my normal golf shoes, but better than I expected. Club path was coming in at 1.8 to the right, so pretty straight as well. Pressure, I think, to be honest, when I look at all the different shoes here, we've seen pressure on the trail side reach the same number nearly every time. And I think this is because when you start, you start your motion and you move to where you feel comfortable. Now, when you are in motion, controlling that becomes much more important for the shoes. So yeah, 82 to the right, same as all the others pretty much. Pressure on the downswing came in at 69 to the left, so pretty similar as well. Pressure movement, close. The forces, however, horizontal from side to side, that was good, the same number, and again, because of its movement, I'm not surprised. The torque was pretty good, but the verticals were also pretty solid. So impressed there, more impressed than I expected to be. Move on to this one. So this is different to my golf shoe because my golf shoe is a lot flatter, and as you can see here, it has a higher heel leading to a slightly lower toe. Now, when we look at the overall, I got 112, so very close to my actual golf shoes. The path improved though, and this is a big one. Only 1.1 to the right. Now, pressure, pretty much the same. Forces, higher horizontal force, same torque force, higher vertical force. Maybe I've been using the wrong shoe. What happens is when you have a heel that is much higher, you are forced to go more towards your toes, towards the ball of your feet. If you are a good player, you might be able to utilize more vertical forces by pressing down on the ball of the foot earlier and then going upwards. What does that do to my club? Well, it'll push my whole torso backwards, and therefore the club will work its way more on the inside. Maybe I should be trying these for a little while and seeing what it really delivers. Now, the overall thing with the shoes, what have I come to realize is that different shoe types are going to create different movements for you. 100%. You're going to be able to create different forces. You're going to have different patterns. So I would love golf companies who produce golf shoes to tailor-made the shoes to the player. Sounds like a lot to ask, but I think it makes a lot of sense. We have different movements. Players move differently, but that player should be using the shoe to their advantage. Now, of course, that's just for the full shots. Don't get me wrong, I'm an aim point instructor. I teach people how to feel slope under their feet. So this is going to be a new challenge to me to see if I can feel it as effectively as I can my so-called flat shoes. But I think overall, this has been a really interesting project, and I hope that you might have learned something from it too.